Okay, welcome to the second video tutorial. Thanks for downloading this. Hopefully this helps with your revision. Again, we're looking at section A, so the first part of the exam. But this is the part that I'd actually like you to do second, section A. Get your boy in the striped pajamas question out of the way in section B first, then come to section A. So the second part of section A asks you to write a persuasive letter, very specific type of letter. First thing we're going to do is just look at the format. Okay, how do you lay out, how do you structure your letter? Okay, you don't need to worry too much about giving addresses and dates. Okay, that kind of the detail there, you're not going to get marked down. Your letter should begin quite straightforward with that salutation, that address, dear editor. Now the editor, remember, is the person who's chosen to publish the article that you've just read, okay, for the first part of section A, reading non-fiction. Okay, so they're kind of the boss of the newspaper or whatever publication it might be, and you're addressing them directly. So remember, if you use the personal pronoun you or your, you're talking to the editor, the person who thinks that the argument that his journalist, his writer, who he employs, put forward was a good one that should go into public domain, should be read widely. Okay, so that's who you're talking to. A good way to start, I'm responding to your recent article published in The Age, okay, which outlines, let's take that Bully Beatdown TV show that we talked about, which outlines a disgraceful new trend in the media towards violence and condoning bullying in shows like Bully Beatdown. Okay, so be very, very clear what you're writing about first of all. Okay, you can start also, it's come to my attention that, that's another good sentence starter. But remember, you're not giving your point of view in that opening sentence. You might say, it's come to my attention that TV shows are disintegrating or deteriorating into kind of lowest common denominator kind of really poor quality television that's kind of inciting violence and not solving any social problems. Okay, or it's come to my attention in a recent article published by your newspaper that bullying is being publicly applauded in TV shows like Bully Beatdown. Okay, second sentence towards the end of your first paragraph, okay, is where you state your actual point of view. State it forcefully. Okay, which side of the argument are you on? And remember, you have to be consistent. Don't get confused at any point, because that undermines you. You have to be very, very careful how you word things. You should be on one side of the argument the whole way through. Okay. A good way of ending that opening paragraph is a rhetorical question. Okay. Why would we want our young people to grow up in a world where violence is something that we find entertaining, or something like that, with an obvious answer? That's what a rhetorical question is, remember, to get the reader on your side, at least provoke a reaction. Now, the following paragraphs are where you actually add your argument and the bulk, the detail of your reason. Okay, explaining in detail what you think and why, and adding evidence to back up what you say. We'll come to this in more detail later on in the tutorial. And then probably towards the end, a counter argument. Okay, so anticipating what the other person might say, the opposition, kind of like a rebuttal in our discussion work, our speaking and listening work, and saying, why they're wrong. Okay, and really, destroying their side. Okay, making it clear that you are right in the end. Then you need your conclusion at the end. If you're summing up basically your statement, that you said at the beginning, you need to sum it up, but in different words. Okay, you need something powerful, something snappy, something punchy to end on, and then that just to sign off, yours sincerely, and then your name. A reminder there: don't forget your paragraphing. All right. For this part of the exam, remember you've got 44 minutes for section A. So you want to, and that includes 10 minutes reading time. So you want to spend about half of that 44 minutes on your letter. So let's call it 20 minutes on the letter. Okay, 15-20 minutes, and that includes 4 or 5 minutes planning time. You want to be aiming to write at least 5 paragraphs, but it depends. All right, as long as it's good quality, that's what really matters. Okay. Do's and don'ts. You really do need to know your audience, know who you're writing to, the editor. Okay, do's. He's a respected person. He's in a powerful position. He's got status. So be polite and formal. I'm sure you will agree that. Okay, we all have the best interests of our children at heart. Okay, sound like you're in earnest. Okay, but don't be too kind of casual, too conversational. That's more for advertising, not formal letters. Okay, formal terms of address as well. Okay, so Miss or Professor. And don't be too forceful, especially at the beginning. Okay, threatening people, agree or die, is not going to win you any friends. Okay, it's not going to actually get anyone on your side. If you're trying to say that you agree with the article that the editor published, you need to say that you want other readers to support your petition or your campaign or your position, and change the world in some way. Okay, so you're saying that you lend support to the editor and his journalist and his writer. Don't threaten him. Okay, don't use slang. Remember, it's formal, so there's no stuff, there's no guys. Um, I say make a strong argument, but keep it within the bounds of proper standard English, and give simple reasons. This is a problem. Sometimes you kind of negate the argument. That means you kind of make it seem pointless if you just get out of it by saying, well, if we're talking about the banning of boxing, people can choose not to box. The end. Okay, that's not going to be enough. You need to actually give detail in your reasons. Okay, so think about it very, very carefully. A reason, a paragraph in your argument, it's not just one sentence. Okay, it's 3 or 4 sentences minimum. Okay. Now these are some clues, some tips. Sorry, sentence starters. How you might structure your letter to the editor. After you've given your opening paragraph, your salutation, dear editor, just a few pointers about how you can introduce your arguments. So to begin with, firstly, primarily, chiefly, moving on, secondly, thirdly, adding to your points as they develop, following this, moving on, or over in addition. Consequently, as a result, therefore, that means following on from something else. Okay, so it has to link back to something else to develop what you've said. When it comes to the counter argument, which we'll deal with later, but we talked about in class as well, some would argue that blah blah blah, but blah blah blah. If you're making a comparison, in contrast, or whilst, or however, if you're actually making a comparison but you're saying there's a similarity, obviously a word like similarly, or much the same way, or both. And then to end, finally, or in summary, or to conclude that final paragraph. Okay, remember, a phrase like "I urge you to," or something quite kind of demanding or forceful, but just at the end there, once you've kind of got your reader on side, and you're happy that you've convinced them. Okay, now the bulk of what you say is made up of your reasons. So when it comes to planning, which we'll talk about, you have to really think in detail of good solid reasons to back yourself. Now we use this analogy of a brick wall, okay, or building a house. So the building blocks, what makes it a solid foundation, okay, is your reasons. They've got to be good. Let's face it, they've just got to be convincing reasons. So that's your imagination, your powers of logic. Okay, what would convince you? Ask yourself that question. If we want to continue that, the cement, what holds those bricks together, those linking words, those linking phrases that we just dealt with in the previous part of the presentation. Now, for example, in the first presentation we talked about the banning of boxing. Okay, so here's some reasons you might consider. Young people may think fighting is cool. Okay, so the impression on the readership. Obviously, the injury that people suffer. Some of it is very severe. Some of it's not casualties. It's actually fatalities. So people dying. It's too bloody and brutal to be civilized. It's not sport. It's too bloodthirsty. Glamorizes violence, makes it look cool. Really stressing the other point. And it exploits young men. So people who perhaps are easily influenced, or that they don't really have many other opportunities. Obviously, this is a one-sided argument. These young men are being taken advantage of, okay, in some way. And it encourages gambling. Obviously, boxing is linked to gambling. And finally, Any sport where a knockout, this is kind of like the point about violence earlier, is considered a good thing. It's clearly not in the spirit of competition, which is what really, truly sport should be about. So those are your reasons. Now, to back up your reasons, you must have evidence. Three main parts to this, okay, three key bits that you should consider when it comes to evidence. The first one is anecdotes. So a personal account can be made up, remember. Okay, so a personal experience of your own, or of someone that you know, family member, friend, could be anyone. Okay. Every year, both amateur and professional boxers die in matches or afterwards as a result of injuries. Others, such as Michael Watson, are disabled for life as a result of beatings in the ring. Struck in the back of the head in a semi-professional fight last year, he is now paralysed from the neck down and will be dependent on a wheelchair and the care of his family for the rest of his life.